All right. So, welcome, Richard Lico, to this live chat. Thanks a lot for taking the time to actually join me in my channel. And I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time to actually be here, man.
It's great being here, Harvey. This is great getting to talk to you and meet you. And thanks for inviting me on the show. It's really an honor.
I appreciate that. I really do. So, as we were just talking behind the scenes a little bit about your work and how I admire you, and you've been looking at the channel as well and stuff. So yeah, like from my perspective, I've been like looking up to your work as a gameplay animator, considering you one of the best gameplay animators out there by far. And the work that you do and how you animate, it's pretty incredible. And the work that you did on Quill, it's really amazing.
Oh,
So yeah, so it was overdue for us to have an interview or a chat or something, because I would like to actually know just like more about you, Richard, and just get to know you better. And what better way to do it than here in a chat, so people can participate and ask questions and stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool format, and I've not done the live thing before, so this is a unique experience. So hopefully, I don't say anything really dumb.
How do you feel? You seem natural at this, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine.
Well, the cool thing about like the previous experience with GDC, SIGGRAPH, all that kind of stuff, it's all like well rehearsed. So this is a little bit more nerve wracking because I don't have a script, So it's
yeah, exactly.
More props to you for being able to do this for a living.
Well, it's funny though, because when you do it, I actually get to edit myself after the fact.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. So all the mistakes that I do naturally, I kind of go like, yep, chop that, take that away. Yeah. So I think after the edit, people think that the way you talk is kind of eloquent, but I'm pretty sure this live chats will actually reveal to people that things are not that way.
Yes, that's all gone. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Right. So just for the chat, you guys, welcome. And feel free to actually ask questions. And Richard and I are going to have a chat about a bit of everything, animation and whatnot. And feel free to ask questions. And then we'll bring up the questions, and then I can ask them to Richard, and then maybe he can answer them to the best of his abilities. So yeah, just hit us up with questions. One or the other. Also, Rich, so if you actually want to showcase anything in terms of animation, we can actually showcase it by doing this.
Whoa.
And we can look at, for example, his awesome showreel.
My man's prepared. This is amazing.
Yeah. So, so like anything, any links that you have, anything that you want to actually talk about, we can do that.
Cool.
But I don't know if you actually want to showcase to the guys maybe some of your work on like any of these ones that you would like to actually.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to provide context, I think that would help with people who don't know me. I've been a little preface to this. I've been animating since 2000 in the gaming industry. Worked on 12 or so. I don't know. I lost count. Lots of games. Most of them that have shipped. Only a few that's been canceled. So I'm quite lucky in that regard. I know a lot of people, especially back in the early days, project being canceled was a 50-50 chance. So worked on Halo, worked on Destiny. I was actually the first animator on Destiny back in the day, helping establish what the IP was going to be, working with a small team behind closed doors, and then presenting it to the rest of the studio, and onboarding an animation team and getting everyone going on that. That was a really amazing experience. And then recently been doing the Polyarc thing, which is just a group of us from Bungie that broke off, most of the character team at Bungie, and we decided to try our own thing and made a game called Moss, and didn't go out of business yet, so that's good.
That's good, yeah. How long have you guys been at Polyarc now? It's been quite a few years now, right?
Yeah, officially I've been there for a little over 4 years, but the studio's been in business for 5. For the first year of their life, I actually was just helping out in my spare cycles after work, helping put together a little mouse character that eventually became Quill, and prototype with the team. And then, before we got funding, I'm just like, well, this is going to be fun. So I just quit my job and decided to join them full time. And I wasn't earning a paycheck or anything. Didn't have insurance, and just we're doing a passion project. But I had money in the bank, so I'm like, well, I could support myself for a year with my savings and burn through my retirement to make this work. Yeah. So luckily, we ended up getting funding 4 months after I got the job, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So a bit of a leap of faith then.
Yeah, it was quite the leap of faith. But it's the thing is, and I'm sure you know this better than most, is it's the people in this industry, and finding the right team. When you have people that you truly believe in, that you can trust and rely on, and you have every bit of faith that they're going to succeed, like that's the leap, right? So even though technically it was a very risky leap, emotionally I thought, okay, if anyone's going to succeed, it's these people, and I want to be a part of that. I want to be right there with them.
That's nice. That's really nice. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel, because that's kind of how I felt when I came to the company that I am right now, Build a Rocket Boy. It's the talent that matters most, and when you actually get surrounded by people that are really nice and you feel good in the company, because that's another part of the whole equation, right? Because being creative and feeling good while you do it, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it's like I could have gone to some big name studio or something and earned a huge paycheck, but that wasn't my goal in the industry. I really just wanted to. I mean, I'm sure you know this. You're in school, you're learning how to do this stuff for a living, right? And you're not sitting there like learning how to animate thinking, man, I can't wait to manage people.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait to schedule documents and do Excel sheets. Like that
doesn't happen.
So it's like, I remembered that about, because I was at Bungie for 8 years, and it was going in that direction where it was more just not making content, more just back end stuff. And I'm just like, God, I miss doing the thing, and I miss being in the trenches with the team,
For sure. Yeah, no, it's crazy how you actually kind of develop yourself and find yourself in places that you didn't want to be originally, right?
Yeah. I'm really curious about Build a Rocket Boy, because I know I scoured your website looking for information. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, no, like the company is secretive by design. So yeah, like I can't say much, obviously, but the one thing I can say is, like, I guess, like Polyarc, it's a place where a lot of talent is converging into. And that is because normally talent kind of like attracts talent, right? So like if you have like someone that you look up to, normally go over there because that person is over there, and then it just kind of becomes that way. And the project itself is something very unique, like nothing else out there, I feel. And if things go well, then the world can see it at some point.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're up to, because if you're there, then I know that it's going to be something incredible. So I'm very curious.
Thanks. Yeah, no, like I'm trying to. I'm pretty sure you can relate to this, but I'm trying to basically kind of get the team to feel as good as possible, so they can create the best work they can. And that's my first priority right now. And I'll love to hear your thoughts about this, but like quarantine has changed things in a huge way. And managing people during quarantine is actually very different. And I'm constantly having to kind of like think of ways to kind of like get the team to feel good and get them to feel together, even though everyone is separate because everyone is working from home. So, like, did you find the same thing over there in Polyarc? Are you working from home now, or are you back in the studio?
Yeah, we're all working remote. I mean, we have a studio in downtown Seattle. I live out an hour away east of there, near the mountain range. So it's I'd work from home a lot even before COVID hit. But yeah, we're actually growing now. Like, we got $9 million in investment recently. Yeah, that's great. But that also means that we now need to figure out how to hire people on top of managing a team, on top of managing a project, all via Zoom. And it's been hard.
Right? Harder than I thought.
Yeah, the cool thing is, like, since Polyarc was already doing the work from home thing, like, we had some stuff in place, some baseline experience that we could build off of. And I know a lot of studios didn't have that. So in that regard, we were kind of lucky. But man, like the hiring especially has been really difficult over
Yes,
Zoom.
exactly. Yeah, it's at least in our company we have we had on sites, we call them. So like normally we interview the candidate like webcam, like most studios do, and just like most studios do, if you go past the first stage, then you like bring people over, right? Like put them in a plane, bring people over. They'll spend like 3 days to a week, and then they get to know the country, they get to know the studio, all that stuff. But not having on sites makes it different, because it feels like you don't truly get to know the person fully as you would when you say have a person in front of you.
Yep.
There's definitely a barrier there, and a bit of a leap of faith from both parties, both the person being hired and also the company.
Yeah, and then while doing all of that, still trying to manage your team, still trying to manage your project, still trying to do all of that, and
Yeah, man. Yeah, it ain't easy.
No, it's not. Like how are you dealing with team management over like how many people do you have? Like, are you able to like do you feel like the team's still firing on all cylinders?
I feel like it, but I had to kind of do a few things in order to kind of get people more connected, I feel, and a few of the things are social. Like most of the things are social. Like for example, every 2 weeks we do have Friday night drinks, we call them.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and the idea behind it is that we can talk about everything except for work. So we just talk about random stuff like likes anime, I don't know, German things, because we had like a German rigger, food. And because we have people from everywhere, it kind of becomes a really cool dynamic. And I feel like people become closer that way, because you're not always talking about work all the time. There's a human side to the person, instead of just being Harvey, the director, or this person, the animator. So that helped a lot. And then also just asking people how they're doing on a daily basis. We have like daily stand-ups. I try to always finish the daily stand-ups by asking everybody, did you guys get up to anything special last night? And if anyone just goes like, I watched this TV series or I played this game, that's enough to spark people up into like, oh yeah, I wanted to play that. That's really cool. How was that? And then we spend the next 5-10 minutes talking about that. And it kind of breaks away from that tension from just getting into work and having to just do the work,
Yeah, we've got a pets channel that kind of inspires people. The studio, you're allowed to have dogs in Polyarch, so we've got a big pet culture. So everyone's always posting pictures on a pet channel on Slack, and then we're on Zoom talking about the pets, and my dog's usually going bananas in the background and stuff.
That's amazing. How many dogs do you have?
I just have one lunatic. Yeah, he's
one lunatic dog.
Which is plenty for me. It's more than I can handle already.
Yeah, exactly. By the description, he sounds like a handful.
Yeah. He's an old man now. He's starting to chill out, but yeah.
Nice one. So I'm going to bring up a question, if that's okay.
Yeah. Let's.
Mark James Harbor asks, you can see the question here. How long did you guys spend studying animation before specializing in gameplay animation? And what was the first thing you animated related to games? Do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, might as well. I learned gameplay animation before anything else. Like I got into games because I wanted to be a game developer, and animation just looked like a really decent road in. Back when I started out, it was the late 90s, and PlayStation was brand new, and Pixar had just come out with Toy Story and Bug's Life, so 3D was brand new, and really no one knew how to do 3D animation. So I learned 3D animation to become a gameplay animator because I knew that that's where the gaming industry was headed. Yeah. So it just made sense. Like, okay, that's where the jobs are going to be, so I want to be there. So I started out as a gameplay animator. I didn't go to film or anything like that. What was the first thing you animated related to? My first game was Fire Rescue 911, which was made by a total of 4 people. We had an engineer, we had an artist, we had me learning the ropes as an animator, and then a designer. And we just put the game together in 2 months, start to finish.
2 months. Wow.
this was like 2000, right? So back
Yeah.
then, games were a lot less complex, and
Yeah.
3D was brand new. So we were able to punt it out and get it on the shelf. And then 9/11 happened a little while after, and the game wasn't selling at all. And then 9/11, all of a sudden, everyone was interested in fire rescue games. So then sales went through the roof on this little, 2-month project with 4 people, and it was insane.
So I guess there must have been like an amazing way to get started in the industry and see the
Yeah.
potential of it all, right?
Yeah, it was very trial by fire, and we were able to stay afloat because it was the same company who made Deer Hunter and Duke Nukem. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What's the name of the company again? I forgot the name of the company.
Well, the company was called Sunstorm Interactive, but 3D Realms was the one
3D
who owned
Realms.
Duke Nukem. So we
Yeah.
kind of licensed out the license from them and then made our own Duke Nukem game. But yeah, Deer Hunter was actually owned by Sunstorm. So I don't know if people remember Deer Hunter from back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a big deal.
Remember it. Yeah. Were you involved with the Duke Nukem that took a while to actually make?
No. That was all internal to 3D Realms. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with that mess.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
More props to the people that did, though. That's
yes, props to them, because it happens a lot in this industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, how about you? I was asking what you.
Yeah. I was just about to say, actually, I actually didn't spend time animating. I spent time illustrating since I was like 14, mid 90s as well. And I developed a love for animation when I did a course in London for animation specialists. It was called Animation Specialist. There was nothing specialist about the course, unfortunately. I learned a lot about Maya and rigging and all these things, but I didn't really learn a lot about animation. But it was enough for me to kind of like get the bug of animation and know how beautiful it is and all that. And I spent an additional 3.5 years after I finished my bachelor's degree. So 6 years in total, like learning how to animate properly. And thankfully, during those 3 years, a person that I'm thankful to this day is Jason Ryan, which you probably know him as well,
Yes.
right? Super legendary animator. He actually mentored me before I animate. Before he had some newsletters. I don't know if you remember that.
That was the precursor of my Animate.
Yeah. So I sent him an email for one of his newsletters because he said, if you have any questions, send him an email. And I think he must have seen how desperate I was, because I was like, please, I don't know how to animate and all these other things. And he spent the next 1.5 years, I think, just answering my questions and like telling me how to animate and going to my shots and reviewing them and giving me tips on how to actually be better. And that was like life-changing to me. That's the thing that actually got me like falling in love, and also like wanting to teach others, because here's this guy actually kind of teaching me animation, and he really didn't got paid, or he was doing it for the love of animation and to help others. So that was amazing to me. That was really, really cool to see.
Awesome.
Yeah, really cool. So I'm forever thankful to Jason for that. And the first thing I animated related to games was actually GoldenEye 007. The one with Daniel Craig, though.
Oh, okay.
Not the original. Yeah. So the original one, as you know, probably, Rich, there was a lot of like back and forth about people actually doing GoldenEye again. And then this company that I joined called Eurocom got the license from Activision. So Activision was the publisher, Eurocom was the developer, and we had to redo the game in a next gen, which was Nintendo Wii at that point, and make it exactly with the same levels, same mechanics, but just everything new, and just have better mechanics, networked, and also have the four players couch play that GoldenEye is known for. And I had a blast. It was really cool to see. And it was the first time that I saw finger mocap as well. It was like a new thing. It was 2008, I think. And that at that point in time was like groundbreaking. And Daniel Craig actually came to the studio at some point to actually do some mocap shoot. and he had like a gun, and he was like changing the magazine. And because he's been trained as an actor, he was doing it really well. And seeing that stuff then in Maya, with all the fingers animating without you having to do anything, that to me was magic. It
Oh,
was
you're
great.
cheating. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a cheat. Yeah, for sure. It's like, wow, I don't have to animate anything. It's great. But turns out that over time, it didn't really hold up that well. So you end up having to have to do some more. But yeah, that was a really cool experience to have.
Yeah, I'm a bit jealous. That's way better than a fire rescue game made in 2 months.
Well, we had to do it in about a year. So it was still like incredibly like
It's aggressive, yeah.
ambitious. Yeah, super aggressive, right? Because it was supposedly a AAA game, but that studio Eurocom is no longer around. But they had really short development cycles, 6 months to 8 months. So having a year was a luxury to them. But yeah, I'm thankful. I'm really thankful because it was a good game, and at that point when it came out, it had a great review, and people felt very sentimental. So it's one of those reboots that actually makes the game better in some ways, you know. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's a cool project, man.
yeah. Really cool to actually be involved with that. Yeah. So let me just see if anyone actually can I have some questions here. Oh, here's a question that I get all the time. I have a question for you, younger animators. They would like to suggest, especially international animators, non-EU citizens. During the pandemic, it's very hard to break into the industry. So I get this question quite a bit, and because you're in the US, it would be awesome to have your standpoint. People from outside Europe, outside America, that actually wanted to break into the industry. What would be your advice to them?
It's hard, and especially when you're a junior candidate, because from the candidate's perspective, you're thinking, well, I'm just as good as person A, and I deserve the fair shot. And it's true. From that perspective, that is absolutely accurate. From the studio's perspective, it's a different story. It's the cost of getting somebody into the country using a work visa. There are lawyers involved. There's the risk of losing that employee if, some weird administration like we might have right now tends to get uppity with immigration. There's a lot of complications to bringing on an international candidate that the studio then has to take on the risk and cost for, which means that hiring somebody down the street is a much cheaper and more secure endeavor than hiring somebody from out of the country. So it's difficult for that candidate who is equal in skill to be able to secure the job, because it's now it's an uphill battle in that situation. Mm-hmm. So I think for an international candidate to come work in the United States, for example, they have to make that offset in value worth it to the studio. When I worked at Bungie, it wasn't like some hard line, some hard mandate where we said only, certain level of talent can get in. But it tended to play out that way, where if you had a principal animator or a senior animator who was highly skilled, and that just really stood out from the pack, the cost of the visa, the risk involved with keeping them in the country became worth it, because they just really shine. They really stood out. So I think if you're looking to switch countries as an animator, it's just be the best of the best. Just really focus internally, like make yourself irresistible, make that cost of overcoming the boundary worth it to the studio.
Yeah, that's exactly what I like to say as well. I'd like to suggest. So yeah, spot on. And you said it much better than I could ever say it as well. No matter if you're really, really good animator, no matter where you are, people will get you or want you, right? And they'll do whatever to get you. But yeah, it's really complicated to get people from abroad in, and the gamble from the studio side of things and the investment it's huge.
And it's difficult from the candidate's perspective. You're moving to a new country with a new set of laws, and and understanding how it all works and the culture shock involved in something like that. It's like I've always wanted to work in Europe. I always thought that would be enjoyable, but I've also been intimidated by the idea of doing it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Likewise here, I never actually ended up working in the US, but I always wanted to do it at some point. It was like, to me, felt really appealing, especially LA and California and San Francisco. I'm like, I fancy a bit of sun because here is so gray all the time.
Well, don't come to Seattle. I think the weather's about par.
It's about the same. So avoid Seattle then. Nice one. Right.
That's a good question, though.
It's a very good question. Yeah, I keep having it all the time, and I feel like people need a way in. Once you're in, you're in. It's very easy for you to actually jump around studios if you decide to change jobs, but it's just breaking in from outside of Europe, breaking in from outside of the US. So I feel the candidate's pain whenever they actually have to do it. It's difficult to explain.
And he mentioned the pandemic too. And speaking to the pandemic, like the interview process is a lot more difficult. And, you know, I don't think it makes it any harder to find a job in the pandemic in the gaming industry specifically, because people are all staying home and playing games. So the market is actually growing, which means that there might even be more jobs available because of the pandemic. But it does change how hard it is to interview, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Right. So here's a question specific for you. Well, I guess I animated once in VR as well, so I can explain my experience. But
so VR used to animate.
Yeah.
Animate more efficiently. You know, I've actually never done it. I hate to say, you know, I've been at Polyarc for over 4 years making VR games, and I've never animated in VR. But that being said, I've watched Goro Fujito. I think I'm screwing up his name, but I've watched him animate in VR, and it looks like a ton of fun. But everything we're doing has been using a traditional, well, I shouldn't say traditional pipeline because I'm insane. I have weird workflow, but we use a Maya pipeline to make assets because it's what I'm familiar with. And we've been heads down trying to make Moss, and then now something new. So I actually just haven't had time to mess around animating in VR, but I'm hoping to try it eventually.
Yeah. Likewise, I don't have a VR. I've been wanting to get one for a while, especially when Valve released the I forget the name of the one they did release recently. It looked really cool.
Was it the Index?
Index, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So that looked really amazing, and I cannot wait to get it. The 1 or 2 experiences that I had in VR blew my mind, and since then I've been wanting to get it, but I didn't have the space to do it until recently. Like now I have this office that I have more or less space, but yeah, like no time. Time is normally the problem.
Yeah, you know, it's the job and you with the YouTube channel, like, and kids. Like,
yeah, and kids, yeah.
There's no time left. We're done.
Exactly. And if I buy the VR headset, guaranteed my daughter's going to use it more than I do.
You know, it'll be falling off of her face. So my kids are constantly trying to use it, and I'm constantly, no, put it back on. They're like,
put it back. Like she'd be like balancing it in the head.
And then they can't get their bearings on reality, so they'll reach for something and smash their face on something like that.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, and you have to try to act calm, because if you actually panic, it's worse for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight away, you're like, no, everything's fine.
And then they take it off, and they have this big red ring around their eyes.
Kids, the best. Cool. So we have a question from Twitch. Captivating Studios. How many animations would you say you get done within a work week, either polished or unpolished?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Do you want to go first on this one?
Sure.
I'm curious to see your answer on this.
Yeah. So at the moment, 0. At the moment, no animations. So, but I'll tell my experience from before this director position. So, like when I was working in Battlefront, depending on the character. So, if we were working on a brand new character, establishing the character. So, for example, something like the Ewok, right? Establishing the idea of the Ewok and getting the character in, and like thinking if it's going to be hand key or motion capture, and what kind of parts are going to be hand key and motion capture. All that stuff basically meant that we did very little for the first 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks. And then after you actually get either the mocap shoot done, or you start kind of jotting some ideas on hand key, normally you have to do about 3 or 4 animations a week, depending how complex the animations are. So we had very complex animations like the main menu, for example, the BB-8. I made my life difficult by creating this animation that the BB-8 is like hanging from the ceiling and then drops, rolls, and then walks towards the player. And the rig was not, you had to make the rig quickly. So it didn't really have IK cables and things like that. So it took me about a week and a half to do that. but animations that are small, like, I don't know, little emotes or little like animations of like going fetch or shooting or whatever, that stuff normally takes about 3 or 4 animations per week, and it doesn't take very long because those are the gameplay animations that you actually see in game all the time.
Yeah, it's about the same for us then. Like, so using Moss as an example, when we were trying to figure out the character, I mean, time estimates are out the window. It was just figure out who the character is and how the character moves, stuff like that. And then once we actually got into production, it varied. Like, if we wanted to do, like, the opening scene of Moss is 2 minutes long, and that took well over a month, But, your average gameplay sample, like when Quill waves to you, like you wave to her and she waves back, hi. That's about 4 hours, that animation. So like I can do 2 of those a day type of thing. So it really depends on the complexity, the usage, and, like it could really run the gamut. Like on Moss, I was probably putting out about anywhere between 5 to 10 animations a week for gameplay purposes. And we've got a cool pipeline where we have we don't use mocap, but we can generate a lot of the body mechanics for free. So what we do is we can pose the character out, do some rough tweening, and then run dynamics to kind of generate body mechanics in the character for us.
That's really cool.
Gets us further along. It's kind of like having dynamic mocap, where we craft the keyframe performances, and then, like, you remember the old Disney days where the Disney animators they do the core posing, and then a low-paid tweener would come in and yeah. I wrote scripts for our tweeners. So
that's amazing. So you have is the script called Tweener?
I wish. I wish it was as simple as a button. It's actually a bunch of buttons depending on what you want to do. But you essentially generate a lot of the tweens.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I think someone actually released a plugin that does something similar, right? It gives you like free overlapping on a part of the body, if you like, or a tween that actually looks better and stuff like that. I don't know if it's the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools going in that direction. I think the industry is heading more in the character direction, like where animators are going to be focused less on like what does translate X on the IK hand doing versus like is the hand making the right gesture I want when I generate it.
That's it, yeah.
So it's the job's changing.
Yeah. Great. How do you feel about? Sorry. Can you hear the feedback on your side, or it's okay?
The feedback? No. I need?
Okay. No. There was a bit of a feedback. It might be my side. So let me know if you can hear any feedback on your side.
No, I'm good.
No. How do you feel about motion matching?
Oh man, I love it because it makes the characters feel more real and connected to the world. You feel more immersed in the game. The characters feel more alive. I feel like it's really animating. Versus puppeting. So from that perspective, I think it's amazing. I also think it's challenging from a gameplay perspective because it's like, I need characters that can instantly break out of an action on a button press and do all these very responsive things that make for very fluid, good feeling gameplay. And that tends to work against the motion matching system. So I think it's great. And I think it will continue to evolve, but I think it's also challenging from a gameplay design perspective to make them feel as good as direct gameplay control and crafted transitions and whatnot. I mean, have you had much experience with it?
A little bit. More like distance matching more than anything, like which is very specific to like the root motion moving about. But I think like animating the old school way of actually having root motion and having an animation connect to this other animation and having the control, like the main controller connect, and that stuff is the stuff that I spend most of my career doing so far.
Yeah.
So the old man brain in me still thinks the old way is the best way. But after seeing how certain games actually do it, in EA, for example, a lot of the sports games use something like that.
Yeah.
So seeing the results, seeing how they blend basketball games, and seeing For Honor, which I think is like the game that everyone just got thinking, wow, this actually really works. It actually has a lot of potential. I really don't think we are still in at the point right now that everyone can use it. I think it's for a very specific type of game.
Yeah.
That very specific certain motion, then it's fine. But if you actually want to have free range of motion, I think going the way that you can maybe pick a few things from this method and use it within root motion, within the traditional way of animating, I think it's the way to go.
You know, I saw there was somebody who wrote a tool for Motion Builder that was essentially a motion matching system based on AI learning and all that kind of stuff, but it's all offline. So essentially you're creating, right? Like, isn't that the best way to go about it? Because then it's like you're still crafting your in-game performance, but you're generating the data that you're using a motion matching system. Look,
that is cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So no expensive servers, querying, or anything like that. No AI.
That's cool. No surprises with transitions that you weren't expecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
To me,
go ahead.
Sorry. To me, it's fascinating to actually see how things are developed so quickly. Because I don't know if you do the same, but I equate the games industry as we are right now to how Disney, like the time from when the brothers Lumiere invented cinema as it is, and then Disney picked it up like about 30 years later. I feel like the industry is about that time, right? When Disney was like let's get this started. No one really knows how to do it exactly, but like let's figure it out and let's kind of get a system that works. And I feel like over the next maybe 20 to 50 years from now, people will get a system, and then most studios will work in a certain way, and there's going to be some methodology to it. But there's so many different ways to achieve the same thing now.
Yeah, and I think it makes our lives more creative right now because of that uncertainty.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Like, I'm so thankful to be doing what I'm doing right now because of that. It's not a refined industry, and we're figuring stuff out.
Yeah. Like, imagine the 9 old man. How much fun it must have been to be like, now there's a new principle. This thing happening all the time. That must have been amazing.
That's and I don't know what you're doing right now, but I know that's one of the reasons I wanted to get into VR game development. It's because, like, if you look at film, you're a passive audience watching this thing take place, and then the job of the film is to emotionally bring you along on this arc and make you feel like you're immersed in this universe. And games, they're all about, allowing you access to this interaction, like essentially providing you with an avatar, and then you have this button, you have this picture on your wall, and you press things and things happen on the screen.
Yeah.
But VR is different. VR is this new form of entertainment that the industry has never seen before, where you take, a lot of what's best about film, you take a lot about what's best about game, and then you put them together into one medium where you get to actually literally be in that world, reach in, touch things. Like, you could, like with film, a character that stares you in the eyes is creepy because that's breaking the fourth wall, unless you're Deadpool, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But in VR, it's essential. Like, that's what makes it like really just shocking, is having a little mouse stare at you and talk to you in sign language. It's like, holy crap, is that thing real?
Yeah, and it's funny because the first example of VR I had was this thing that Valve created. There was this robot that, like, the core of the robot from Portal, the core of the robot will extend, and you could see inside the core, and you can actually pick little parts and stuff. And I played Portal first and second, and I thought it was amazing. And when you look at your screen, like real life, the robots look this big. when I jumped into VR, and actually there was a door, because I was in an empty room, and there's a door that opens, and as soon as it opens, the door is right in front of you. Like, you just get super scared because the thing that you see is this robot, and the scale of the robot was much bigger than I actually previously anticipated.
Yeah.
And you don't really think in those terms when you play a game on your screen, right? Everybody is the same size roughly.
Yeah.
But when you see this robot in front of you and this massive thing, it's intimidating. It's like, it makes it so much more real. It's incredible.
It does. And then the cool thing about that situation is you can build on that feeling of like, oh my God, look at this scale. And you can do something where, like, if the player were to reach out and push this big creature, the robot in front of you, and then the robot kind of,
yeah.
And now all of a sudden that's an interaction that no entertainment medium has ever had before.
Yeah.
Now, us as animators are crafting these performances that feel way more real. Like, they're essentially going in the direction of the holodeck, where all of a sudden you're creating these lives and you're interacting on an emotional level with players. And it's just like, what kind of an opportunity is this? This is insane.
Insane, yeah. No, I completely agree. What a time to be alive, eh?
Yeah. What a time to be doing what we do. We're very lucky.
We're very, very lucky. It's so cool. Yeah, so let me see. Talking about principles, since we're just talking about it right now, Russell asks, out of all the principles of animation, is there one particular you find yourself relying the most?
I hate to say this, but I don't think about the principles anymore. It's been 20 years. I just think about, the only thoughts going through my head are like, what is the player emotion I want to get, and how do they feel about what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. And then how do I craft motions that maximize that? And I just have a ton of tricks that I fall back on, and they essentially use all of the principles when I can. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you. Like,
yeah, same thing. I find. Let me know if you had the same experience, but I find that principles are really, really good when you're getting started. So you're always remembering exactly the steps that you have to take in order to actually fulfill an animation. After you use those principles for a few years, it becomes second nature, and you start thinking about the movement of the character and what you want to convey in terms of personality. Yeah. But those principles are going to be inherently there if you see the animation work, if like the personality is there, if like it's entertaining enough, and people look at it and be like, wow, this is amazing. All those principles will be there. The principles were created just for people to actually have a way to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think it's ingenious. Like, imagine being the nine old men and needing to describe what they've learned, describe what they've figured out.
It's a mammoth task. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, kudos to them, because you're completely right. Like, describing movement and breaking it down in a way that if you follow these steps, then you're gonna get like interesting movement. It's very amazing to me.
Yeah, and they did a great job. And I think that's what is so shocking about it, is they were so deeply intuitive and such great communicators that they were able to take how their brain works and turn it into words.
Yeah. Till this day, I don't really get it. And every time I read the books, you kind of just go like, I'm not there yet. That's how I continuously feel.
Yeah, they were amazing.
They were amazing. And it's sometimes like when you read about their lives and how they worked and their work ethic and how many there was no concept of like crunch in their time, right? And there was no like, and that's detrimental nowadays. Obviously, society has changed, but the amount of work they put in just a few people actually make like a full-fledged an hour and a half movie, and doing all the animations in just a few animators, it's an incredible achievement. It's incredible.
They spend all day, every day thinking about this stuff.
Reading it.
I can't, like, there was a book by Malcolm Gladwell about trying to capture what extreme, like how did Bill Gates become Bill Gates, or
Right.
you know,
I need to check it out.
yeah, I wish I could remember the name of the book, but I have a long commute, so I do audiobooks on the way to work. Back.
If you can find it, please let me know, because I'm big into audiobooks as well.
But it was one of the best audiobooks I've gone through, because it really explains like how that extreme level of talent came to be, and what are the commonalities between Bill Gates and this, the hockey players in Canada, and how they are how they learn their skill and how they become so good at what they're doing. And it finds essentially the crux of it is time. It's the amount of time spent doing a thing, and the opportunity of being one of the early people in that.
Yeah.
And it's the culmination of those two situations that create greatness. And if you look at the Disney animators, like, it kind of makes a lot of sense, because they were essentially defining a genre and spending literally all day, every day, thinking about it, doing it. And how could they not become the masters,
That's true. That's completely right. And I wonder if those circumstances that Disney created for them, if they will ever happen again, given how society is changing now. Because I don't think, unless you are an incredibly determined person that is willing to actually spend all that time at work and off work, actually working on it. I kind of feel like having internet, having all these distractions, having all this stuff, is just kind of puts people into a corner that people don't really spend as much time as they used to, and like crafting and like obsessing over something,
Yeah, it's I don't know, like, I think we all have the ability to make personal decisions on stuff like this. Like, and I look at your body of work and where you've gone. I think you've spent a lot of time, making effective decision making. And
right, yeah, for sure, yeah,
staying in the trenches. I think that, for me personally, like the choice not to go the management route, the choice not to be the Excel doc guy, and to stay in the trenches with the team, has made, like, I wouldn't be able to do what I can do now if it wasn't for those decisions early on. And I think it was the awareness, seeing what the 9 old men went through, and what Bill Gates and Canadian hockey teams went through, and realizing it's that time. Yeah.
That's nice. Here's a interesting question by Laza. Another thing that keeps coming up: do you guys think it will be late for me to learn animation if I'm in my 30s? And I mean, like, to be able to work in the industry. What do you think?
It's never too late. I think it really depends on, how much you want it, how motivated you are, and how much work you're willing to put into it. And that's true no matter what age you're in.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I actually started animating when I was 28, 29. And I actually thought at the time that I was going to be too late. And I was going to be like, because when you look at people that actually start nowadays in the industry, they come out of uni or studying, and then they go straight into games, and they're early 20s. So being in the company, starting and being that late, for me was like a massive thing that was in my head all the time. And I constantly felt like I was pursuing everyone, like chasing people. But it is like Richard was saying just now, like the amount of time and work that you put in on something, it's how fast you'll be able to master it. So what I've done to compensate for the lateness in getting into the industry was actually work extra hard in order to kind of make the most out of it, and try to showcase my talent the best I could, and take the opportunities and make the most out of them and stuff. So that's kind of how I saw it. But yeah, it's never too late. I feel it's never too late.
What I like about what you said there, Harvey, speaks a lot of who you are, and it's the acknowledgement of the emotional toll that situation creates.
Yeah.
Like that's you're very intuitive when it comes to like understanding people, and I think that's also probably why you're also a good animator and a good leader.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So first and foremost, I'm the kind of person that feels like super on the spot whenever I get props from other people. So
you're wildly uncomfortable. This is great.
Exactly. I tried to dodge him. Like, let's talk about you now. Yeah. I actually speak with my fiance Camille all the time, because she keeps telling me all the time these things, and I there's part of me that doesn't really believe these things, that I'm good, that I can actually excel, that the YouTube channel is good. All these things are things that I continuously think it's not really good enough, but not in a negative way, not as in like I'm going to quit, but like in a way that I'm going to try to pursue to be a better person or be a better YouTuber or be a better animator. Um, and yeah, I don't know exactly where that comes from. It might be because of the rough upbringing, not having parents, and fulfill the feeling of needing to have validation from other people. But either way, having people like yourself, having people like Jason Ryan, like kind of like saying good things about the work that I do, it means a lot to me, because nothing like having your peers, people that have much more experience than you, telling you that the stuff that you're doing is good. So I appreciate that. I really do.
Oh, you deserve it, man. And I think the thing that makes animators great is the ability to understand people, to understand psychology, to understand emotion, because you can't really animate characters that have deep emotions and resonate with people if you don't understand people. So I think, like, for anyone looking to become better animators, be more empathetic, understand psychology more, really get into the people around you, really understand who they are. And I think you not only will it make life better, but you'll produce better work. Like, your sword swings will be more in character,
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly right. I could not agree more with what you just said right now. I think learning people in general, it's just, yeah. Yeah, the best animators that I know are the most empathetic ones, for
Yeah.
sure. People like yourself, people like Jason Ryan, just to mention the same people again, but it's true though. I feel like you need to have that empathy within you in order to be able to connect with people at a deep emotional level. And that's great. It's a skill difficult to master. I think you have to be born with it.
Yeah. Well, I actually, you were pretty vulnerable in your video a few months back, with your reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff. So, that, by the way, I found that video really appealing. Thank you for doing that and being open with everyone.
Thanks.
I grew up in a household where my mom was a narcissist, and my dad wasn't my dad. I didn't know it at the time, but he was my adoptive father. And
Oh wow, so tough as well, really tough. Wow.
yeah, it was a rough upbringing, because I had a dad that at the time wasn't too into me because I wasn't his kid, and
Right.
a mom who is narcissistic, so she had trouble relating to me.
Wow.
So I
you
was
felt
huh?
lonely, I guess. Felt lonely.
Yeah, it was lonely. So, and also, like, I didn't learn empathy from either of them. So this has been something that I've struggled with my entire adult life, and I've realized how important it is. And
Yeah.
I'm like actively trying to learn that skill, and it's not easy, but I think realizing I need to learn it and will just make me a better person and a better animator.
Yeah. That's great that you brought that up, and I appreciate the openness. Like, first and foremost, sorry to hear that. Like,
Everyone's got a story.
everyone has a story. Yeah, exactly. But still, like, it's incredible to actually hear the people's stories. And do you think the lack of empathy growing up, because I had the same, makes you actually want to tune into that much more as a grown up because you didn't have it, so therefore you want to actually fill that gap?
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like a domino effect where you end up feeling like you are an inconvenience to everyone around you,
Yeah.
and then you start realizing that that is a form of empathy, and that it's feeling that way comes from certain situations, and then it starts snowballing into learning about who you are and what empathy really means. And I think it does put us kind of at an advantage in that regard, because we've had it pointed out to us in a way that is not easy, but makes it so we understand it more, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, at least to me, it makes complete sense. Yeah, that's really cool. It kind of brings me back to the idea of like you never really truly know people. You should never assume that people are a certain way. Like something that I have learned through my journey as well, that sometimes you just assume when you're young and naive that people are a certain way because they look a certain way, but it doesn't really mean that they haven't been through a lot.
Yeah, and we all have common ground. We all have, like, everyone's got a story. Everyone's got crap they've had to overcome in their lives, and that's something we could all build off of, right? Instead of it being such a divisive world, you know?
Yeah, completely. Right. So,
Boy, that got heavy.
it got really heavy, but great. It's great. I love it. So here's a question from Chromosome, by the way. Welcome, Chromosome. Chromosome knows a lot about animation, by the way. He's really good at answering questions about animation to the chat, so I appreciate that. So he asks, if you had the opportunity to work on any project or game franchise, what would you choose? And I'm guessing this doesn't matter if it's future, present, or past franchises.
Well, I'll go first because I'm already bumbling. Well, you know, when I was working at Bungie, and I quit, I had the choice to make any game I could imagine. With the group of people I chose to make the game with, and I chose to make Moss because it is my dream project. It's got, you know, combat in it, it's got puzzles in it, but it's also a game about empathy and human emotion and making bonds with a creature that I can put myself into, or I can put my daughter's personality into. So that is my ideal franchise, and I'm working on it now, and I couldn't be happier.
That's great. So for me, I would actually say that the game that I'm working on right now is that. Same exact thing. It's so if I could actually choose a game to actually work way back, like from the past, that I looked up to, I think it would have been Mario 64 when it came out. Do you remember how impactful that was when it came out?
God, just seeing the world of Mario in 3D it blew my mind.
Exactly. It was like, and it had like 100% reviews everywhere, and it was something else. I still to this day can't find a game that actually impacted the games industry as much, going from 2D to 3D and doing it so well. Like from the go, it's just incredible. So a past project would have been that, but as my experience has rolled through, after you do a few AAA games, you probably know this better than most, Richard. You kind of just find out that AAA games are great. They look great on your CV. You do a lot of stuff, awesome. But then you start having the needs to actually have something of your own, something that hasn't been pre-established, something that you can actually kind of be creative and actually have your hand on it and have a saying of how things get done. And that feeling becomes augmented the more you do, right? Because sometimes you have a hand on one little bit, or you have a lead on this little, and then you that feeling gets augmented. So hence why I understand why in this position as the director, and hence why I didn't really want to be a director when I started my career. I'm pretty sure it may be the same. But then as you actually kind of grow up as an animator in games, you realize that in order for you to fulfill your needs and wants as an animator and have the project to have the quality that you think, you need to be in that direct position so you can then propagate your message to the team and know exactly the vision, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the reason why you feel like this is your favorite project is the reason why I feel this is my favorite project right now, is because I have that saying. I can actually get to do what I want with the quality that I want, and just hopefully get the world to see it, and people will like it as much as they like Will when it came out.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's see. Me too. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'm happy too much. Maybe I shouldn't talk so much about it.
Well, you know, when we were making Moss, I was tweeting like play blasts of Quill like daily, because no one knew who Polyarch was. We had just formed yet. We hadn't ever put out a game, and I knew that we needed to have build a customer base that were excited about the game. So I was tweeting it out. So I was like taking a lot of risk. Like, people knew what Moss was before they played it because they saw essentially the making of it in real time.
Yeah, no, I remember those tweets. Like every single animation that you put out there, I was like, wow, like the overlap is the stuff that got me the most, man. Like on the ears and like the tail, the one that he's actually jumping, like doing a jump rope on with his own tail.
Yeah.
I thought so awesome at so many levels.
Appreciate that.
Really cool, really cool.
Yeah, one of the, just to go off this question, like if you'd asked me that question like 6-7 years ago, it would have been Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. Nice.
Oh yeah, like I Mario, Zelda, huge in my world, like deeply influenced me. But if I was to pick one franchise that have influenced me more than anything else, it's been the Street Fighter franchise. Like I was a pro player back in the 90s.
You
like,
were?
Oh yeah, like I didn't win anything, but I certainly this is before Evo, so I went to the New York State,
Arcade?
Huh?
Arcade?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was the Champion Edition, the second version of Street Fighter, where I did a lot of competition. This was back in '92, I think.
That was when they had like 9 players, right, on the grid, and you could see them side by side.
Yeah, they had introduced the Balrog, Bison, Vega, playable characters. Yeah, that version. But yeah, and Third Strike actually taught me how to animate, because when I was in college, like you were mentioning, no one knew how to do 3D animation back then. They'd hand you the Maya book and say, go, and then take $40,000 from you. So I actually had to learn how to animate by dissecting Street Fighter 3 Third Strike's frames of animation and then like memorizing them all and then regurgitating them, and still do it. Still have every single sprite that is in Third Strike locally on my machine, and I still reference it.
That is amazing. That is amazing. The feel of that game and how fast it is, and like the readability of it all it's really amazing, I have to say.
God, it's a fine form of art. Like what they accomplished back then is magic. Absolute magic.
Yeah, no. Like and this idea that like everyone knows nowadays in gameplay, but like counting frames and making sure they have the right amount of frames in order to achieve that hit or that to achieve whatever you want to do and to make it feel good. That game feel, that there was no name for it back then. Like people just found out how to do it. That's why Mario 64 is big in my world, exactly for that feeling, right? Exactly for the same thing. It's just like, I mean, it was a world there was no rules to make games, not unlike now, and there was no such thing as a game feel, but that game made you feel amazing for some reason at that point. Now you understand why, but back then there was something about that game that made you feel like $1 million.
Yeah, and there's a lot we can still learn to this day from what they were able to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool, man. Great answer.
I'm just going to close my window real quick while we're reading the next question. I'm freezing my butt off. Here we go.
So let me see. If you see any questions that you would like to answer, feel free to ask the... Oh, here's a question for you for your online /lessons, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Do you talk or teach about dynamic motion capture in your line lessons? And what do you guys know about motion matching and deep learning in character animations?
Oh, you mean at my school?
Yeah, I guess it's Animation Sherpa that they were talking about.
Well, Animation Sherpa, right now it's I've got one course available, and it's on my personal workflow. So all the crazy space switching stuff I do, the generating dynamics to fill in the body, I teach everyone how to do that. Like there's, I think, 33 lectures, video lectures on like how to do every last bit of it. It seems to have gotten good reception. I'm hoping in the future to expand to more courses, but due to COVID-19 and my kids not going to school, that has taken up way more of my time than when they were going to school and they had a social outlet, and then needing to put in extra hours at work to compensate for not going to an office and needing to catch up. I've not been putting a lot of time into new courses yet. So hopefully once COVID-19 is over with, I could resume adding new courses and stuff. I don't know if deep learning motion matching will be one of the courses right off the bat because I don't have much experience with it right now. I did do it on Destiny. Actually, Destiny 1 had motion matching in it, and we had to yank it out at the last minute.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fun story because we hired a guy, Young-Jun Lee, who was doing white papers with Zoran Popovich at the UW in Seattle on the topic of motion matching. This was back in 2011, 2012.
Right.
Really early. It was one of the first papers on it. So we hired Young-Jun to come over and implement motion matching, but we were shipping on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and there was only so much runtime memory we had available for animation. So we had to dramatically pare down the amount of clips that the system could choose from. And then we didn't network any of it. So what was happening was our combatants were making choices locally and making different choices on the server, and it diverged them a lot from one another.
For sure, yeah.
So you get a headshot on your machine. The server says, "What are you talking about? He's down the street. How could you have gotten a headshot?"
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
So we had to yank it out. But yeah, the school's not going to have any motion matching training anytime soon.
Yeah. That's great. Like, I'm really happy to hear that the animation Sherpa like worked out great, man. Like when I saw the news on Twitter and stuff, I had to kind of promote it because I feel like knowledge coming from you and the way you work, your animation workflow is very unique, and I think it's very fast as well. So if more people animate like you, and I've learned a lot. Like I actually started animating with locators much more after seeing like your talks on how to actually get like locators to actually get the overlap on your motions and stuff.
Yeah.
And I use Red 9 for getting those like locators on spots and baking in them and stuff. But it's basically that idea of getting those locators to get you information that is already there, so you can be faster when you're animating. So it's something that I got way back in the day when I first saw the talk that you actually did about animating Quill and how you actually went about certain things, animating the I think it was GDC, I believe.
GDC 2018, yeah.
2018, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, since then I've been like, yeah, this is a great way of working, and it saves you so much more time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I figured that would be a good place to start with the school because it's not information you can find anywhere else.
For sure now, yeah.
And it's absolutely lunatic crazy not having a rig and just rigging on the fly as you go. So I figured that would be fun for people to learn because you could take that and apply that to any rig. I mean,
yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to work without a rig. It just means that if your rig doesn't do what you need it to do, you can just, invent the new rigging system that applies over whatever rig you're working with.
That's it, exactly. So yeah, really, really cool, really amazing.
Thanks.
So Chromosome says exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, Chromosome. Thank you. I'm glad it's working.
Yeah, it's so cool. So how like just going off this, you've been in the industry for so long now. How much satisfaction do you take from actually teaching others and sharing the knowledge and all that stuff?
When I was younger, I mean, I love doing it now because it's deeply satisfying seeing somebody benefit from something that not only does it kind of validate the information in a way, but you see that you're giving back to an industry that served you so well over the years, and that feels so good. But it's also intimidating. Like, who am I to say that this is the way to do it, right? There's no right or wrong thing. So like when I make a declarative statement, like who the hell do I think I am making this declarative statement? And I struggle with that, like trying to understand that there's just so many ways to go about doing what we do for a living. Yeah. So like communicating it in a way where I just say, this isn't the way to do it. This is a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I hope it's helpful. And then just hoping it is. And just understanding that, this is just one of so many different ways to go about doing it. And any benefit people get from it is just a blessing, really.
That's exactly right. And what would you say to like, because sometimes you get a lot of animators, young animators, and that feel like they would like to share, but what they have to say is not important.
Oh God, say it and find out if it's important, right? You won't know until you say it. And like, I seriously, like, I've been working this way for 15 years now, but I didn't come out with Sherpa until earlier this year. And I didn't start talking about it publicly until 2018, because even though I was able to do these crazy things and make animation a lot easier for me, I honestly was just scared of being the noob that didn't know what he was talking about. And then once I started saying it, people started saying, wow, that's cool. It's like, oh, wait, what? That's cool? Okay. Yeah. Don't wait that long. Get out there, say it. I'm sure you've got the same story. Like, I'm sure you probably like, God, do I say something?
Yeah, exactly the same. It's like, it's funny because when I started a YouTube channel, part of me was actually thinking, I hope people don't notice, so I don't look they're like, look at what this guy is saying. What does he think he is?
You put a lot of yourself out when you do stuff like this. Like, that's why I like your show so much. It's because you can see the thought. Like, you can see, like, based in your results, you can see, like, you understood that your message could be interpreted so many different ways. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to craft what I know and then put it out there.
That's it. Exactly. And like being fearless, I don't think fearless is the right word, but like being like a little bit about like, I'm going to put it out there and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, I think that comes definitely with time. So I try to kind of like deliver that message to young animators as much as I can. That like, guys, just get out there, do your thing. Like you said right now, right? Like, say it first and then see what happens. Don't be fearful of like the amount of variations there is to this one idea before you do the idea, right?
Yeah.
So like that stuff is actually really important for new animators to kind of get to know. But the experience definitely like works, because you have worked in so many different games. After a while, even if people were to say, Richard, your way of working is not the right way, you already know that the way you work is the right way, because you've done so many things that you really don't need validation about like, this is the best way, because for you specifically is the best way. So yeah, what I try and say in my videos is exactly what you mentioned, which is like, this works for me, I hope it works for others.
Yeah.
So here's what my experience was when I did these things, and this is what I learned when I did these things. Hopefully when you go through the same, or when you've been through the same, maybe some of the conclusions that I got, they will apply to you as well, hopefully.
You know, I want to acknowledge that you and I have had a small advantage in this regard, because like right now, like this generation coming up and the younger animators breaking into the industry, social media has taught them not to say the wrong thing, right?
True, that's true. Very, very aware not to actually kind of say anything wrong. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so they've actually got it harder than we've got it, because we didn't have that training. You know, we didn't have social media to beat us down growing up, right?
That's it. That's exactly right. Yeah, and Twitter can be vicious. YouTube comments can be vicious, right?
Yeah, and so much self-worth can be derived from something like that. So it's like, when the thought of like, you know, I know something from animation, I'm going to say it out loud. It's like, this generation coming up is going to have an even harder time doing it. Like,
I'm doing it. Yeah, that is very true. Actually, yeah, I didn't thought about that, but it's true. I think things are changing so fast that like you just have to do it in the best way you can with the tools that you have, given the time that you have, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're completely right. Like when I first got my first negative comment in my videos, it hit me incredibly hard. And you can have 20 comments that are positive, and you have one comment that is negative, and that's enough to throw your stuff out the way and be like, how comes this person thinks this about my comment? And it gets better every time. Like I don't really pay attention to them anymore, but sometimes more than others, you kind of get to see like the face, how ugly the face of like certain people can be. Like I actually got like racism at some point. Someone that actually kind of was very racist towards me in a comment because he was not happy with one of my answers. And he just escalated really quickly. And it kind of makes you think about stuff, even when you have experience, even when you have confidence or whatever. It still makes you think, how can people be a certain way when the only thing you want to do is help out, right? it's unavoidable. This is what life is, right? But I think putting yourself out there and like making yourself like noticed, and you show strength to other people. And I feel like that strength, the positive normally rules over the negative, and normally people have a tendency to gravitate towards towards the positive. And I feel like this is how we met just now. Like the fact that, I see you as a positive person, you're trying to share. I'm a positive person, I'm trying to share. Let's connect. So I think that's incredible when it happens. Things like this, I think it's really incredible, and just gives you fuel for a long time.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about the positive attracts the positive, because I think that, like what you're saying about, when you get hit with racism in the comments about how that affected you, I think it's giving light to that activity is really the problem with the media these days. And I think I just wish that, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it hurts when it happens, but it's the moment we bring it to the forefront, we validate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think that so many people agree.
Thanks,
And
man.
that's what matters.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I feel like the right people are looking at it, and that's what matters most.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, like, just so you know, oh, here's a question. I struggle with giving production.
Oh, my boy Jalen's in there. Jalen, how's it going, man?
Jalen Green.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what he said.
Sweet. Yeah.
I agree, Jalen. I agree.
Jalen was actually one of my students when I was teaching at Animate, and yeah, he came in. He came in really raw, and by the time he graduated, he'd grown tremendously. Probably one of the biggest growth curves I'd seen in my time at Animate. So it's good to see that he's still getting use out of the crap that I mumble about.
And how did you find the Animate experience? Like, because I guess was that your first like tutoring experience, Animate?
Yeah.
How do you find that experience? Like, what the first thing that you did, and like getting the students getting work? I guess they're probably professionals working in places.
It was intimidating. Like the day one, like I know Rick Arroyo contacted me out of the blue one day, and I actually didn't know him at the time. And he's like, "Hey, I've seen your work. I think you'd be a good instructor. We're opening up a new gameplay instruction area, and we want you to be one of the first instructors for it." And it's like, wow, gameplay. I mean, I know gameplay. I don't know cinematics or film, right? So that seemed to ring a bell with me. And I thought, well, if you've got a school willing to teach something that's specific like that, they're aware of the differences, which is great, because at the time that is not widely known. So when I jumped in, it was because I believed in what they were doing, and I believed in teaching specifically gameplay animation stuff. The experience was mostly positive. I really thought that the people were great. Larry, Rick, all the guys, like, just an incredible school filled with a tremendous amount of talent. So that was the positive thing, but it was really intimidating to do it at first, and it turned into a lot of time. It was a substantial time sink. Like, I'd be putting in 15-hour weeks on top of a full-time job, on top of kids. And it got to be overwhelming amount of time. And after 4 or 5 years of teaching there on and off, it just, the live classes, it just became too much for me, and I just couldn't sustain it anymore. And I do kind of miss it, but it had its downsides too, because usually Animation Mentor and all these different schools, they record all of your classes and all of your lectures, and then they pay you for doing the lecture, of course, pay you weekly, but then, they keep that footage, and they, in perpetuity, earn new students and make money off of it. And I think that it'd probably better if it was more of a shared based thing, where that recording then is more distributed evenly between the talent that recorded it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, because you actually put in the time, right? So it should actually kind of be paid that way. Makes sense. Makes complete sense. But now that you have Animation Sherpa, do you ever considered doing your own YouTube channel, your own like maybe like things like this?
You're too good, man. Like, like seriously, like I know how much time you're putting into that channel.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating. I considered it. I really have, and I think one day, when I'm a little older and I have a little bit more time, like when my kids are grown and they're not demanding so much of my time. Yes, but until then, I'll just rely on you.
Well, I'll definitely subscribe if that day happens. Yeah, no, it is quite a lot of work, I have to say. But I actually like when I got this new job, I actually had to get an editor to help me with the editing of the videos. So whenever you actually do videos, you can actually get the video done. And as long as the editor knows what's your style and what kind of things do you need to do, and you find the right person, finding the right person is definitely key here. Because I found out that most editors are not great at doing the job or replicating a style. So I got lucky and I got someone that actually I could trust. So about a month ago or so, for the last maybe 5 videos, it's been like edited by my editor. So awesome. Yeah, so that actually helps, because then I know that I have to just on the weekend spend like a Sunday 4 or 5 hours recording a bunch of stuff. And then as long as I can actually deliver it without stuttering and in an eloquent way, then I can actually send it to the editor, and then he can actually edit my stuff. Having said that, the very first few times, I was super conscious when you know that someone else has to edit your stuff. Whenever you make a mistake, or whenever you swear, or I don't know, you do this, or you scratch your face, or you pick your nose, you're like, oh, God damn, my editor's going to see that. It's not the best, but yeah, after a while, you kind of just go like, it's fine. He's a trustworthy guy. He's a good mate now of mine, so it's fine.
Well, you're doing well enough to be able to afford an editor, so that's great too, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, it's not a lot, but it's enough for me to kind of like just reinvest the money into the business, into the YouTube video. And just recently, I actually got a sponsor for a new series.
Oh, that's right! Congrats! I saw that. Yeah.
Thanks. So I cannot say it here because I'm keeping it a surprise. but soon I'll actually mention it. But that was a massive boost, because what happens here with YouTube is that like you have to do. I'm doing videos once a week. But for example, Jean Denis. Jean Denis, JD, he does the same thing as me, but more for movies related. He has a much bigger subscription than I have. Really good guy, awesome friend, really cool people. Yeah, he does about 5 videos a week, which is much more than I do.
Oh dear Lord.
He does for about 5 videos a week, and he does extra stuff on the side. So for me, like that is like I cannot do that. I have to do one video, and now that they have the editor, I now have the bandwidth to expand a little bit. That's enough for me to kind of like be like, okay, now I can actually kind of offload this other piece of content to the editor as well. So that's basically why I am actually contemplating this other expansion to have, instead of 1 video a week, 2 videos a week. But yeah, in comparison to most YouTubers that have daily content, is nothing.
Well, you still have the kid, you have the full-time job, you have a baby on the way. Like
baby on the way, exactly.
Sherpa was like each lecture, I think there's 33 lectures. Each lecture was probably anywhere from about 7 hours minimum to about 15 hours of work. And that didn't include like setting up an S Corp, setting up the website, setting up, the getting legal advice and all the stuff that you need to do to start a business, right? Like it was a tremendous amount of time invested in work. Yeah. And like just like going through that, it's like if I had to choose, like, would I do that again? Oh hell no! Like no, I would have found another place to teach it, and I would have been fine doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
once you're through, it's like, God, that was a great learning experience.
Yeah, and you feel proud because it's something that you can just leave there and people can learn from it for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have it. And now, if I wanted to add more classes, it's just the cost of recording the classes as opposed to doing all the other stuff.
That's it. That's exactly right. So I'm actually going to go into. Let me just go and I'm going to like bring out the browser because I went to Animation Sherpa just now today, and I saw these amazing pictures. So I think you need to explain this picture.
Oh God, yeah.
So was this like the Annie Awards? Is that right?
Yeah, I got nominated for 2 Annies back in 2018.
Okay, tell us more about this. This is great. Like I knew of this, but for everyone else like listening or watching this.
Yeah, that was God, being at the Annies was like, I'm hoping like we get nominated for whatever we do in the future. And I almost slipped up, but yeah, like that was like being on the red carpet and getting interviewed with the mic up to your face where it's almost like beating you in the face. Like I stood next to Pete Docter drinking a mojito, right? Like
that is amazing.
Yeah, it was great. Like seriously, like I will never forget it. Like one of the best experiences of my life. Obviously, we didn't win, but whatever. We got nominated twice, and we were there, and it was awesome on a game that I got to animate alone, which was so cool.
That is amazing. Yeah, well deserved though. Well deserved.
Thanks. It was fun.
Well deserved. Yeah, but yeah, you look really good on the red carpet, man. It's yeah, pretty cool. Like I didn't know like until like a few years back that the Annie Awards actually have like all the red carpet experience and stuff. I thought it was fully like, because it's animation, it was fully like a small thing that you just get nominated and then if you win, maybe they'll ship you the award home or something like that,
Yeah, it was like a small Oscar type of situation. It was really incredible, and the amount of stars that were just, because they had this tent where all the nominees got to go and like drink alcohol and get drunk and schmooze. And to be completely candid, I'm a bit of an introvert and I have social anxiety. So like in that situation, I really had a hard time like breaking out and like just going and talking to people. But I was surrounded by old school Disney animators, Pixar people were all over. Like I'm seeing all these people that I idolize, like I look up to, and I'm like, I really want to go say hi, but I just didn't have the balls to do it. So now what I got to do is I got to get nominated again. So I got
this time just
so I could go shake hands some more. Like I did get to talk to the God of War team with Bruno and Erica and those guys, and like that was awesome. And I really wanted to hang out with them more, but I also felt really bad taking their time. And like it was just an incredible experience. Like I got to hang out with Dave Hubert from Animate, who was also the director of Tomb Raider, and like God, it was just so cool.
So many legends, right?
Yeah. Just it was such an incredible experience. And here we made some little tiny mouse game, an indie product. By the way, Moss had a total of 15 people, 3 of which were business dev people.
15 people. Wow.
Yeah, total. That's the team. Like and I did the rigging and the animation. So it was, honestly, we were just thinking we just want to stay alive business wise. We had no idea we'd end up on the red carpet at the Annies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's really cool. I hope whatever you're working next will actually make it as well.
God, fingers crossed.
For sure.
Maybe I'll see you there.
Say again?
Maybe we'll see you there.
Yeah, like I feel like just like you, if I actually were to go there, I'll probably feel the same thing. I'll probably like just freeze and be like, no one knows me. I know everyone, but I don't knows me. So I just better stay in my corner and just like,
and suck on some alcohol until you get some courage, and then
get some courage. Yeah, liquid courage.
Didn't drink enough alcohol apparently.
Yeah. No, but that's really cool. So let me see. In a company.
Oh, chromosomes pointed out the tiny head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he knows a lot about animation, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how is it? Like you lived in Seattle, like is it most of your life or is both Seattle? No,
I came out here for the work. No, I started out in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Is that where you're from originally?
Yeah, born and raised Jersey, and I escaped, and they can't seem to find me. They haven't noticed I'm gone. So
Not yet.
maybe if they're watching this, I'm screwed. That's it. Come on back.
Oh, come back. And how do you? I was just telling you, like, before we started, that like I really liked Seattle. The city looked really, really cool. How do you find it in Seattle? Do you actually like it over there?
I'm more of a country. Like, I like being outside of the city, but Seattle's a nice place. Like, it's got a lot of great little shops, great little places to walk around. The people here are really, really thoughtful and deeply empathetic here. So I actually really like that about this area. But I live out in the forest in the middle of Nowheresville, and I kind of like it that way, being an introvert, because it's peaceful. It's like I can center myself. I come home and I drive up this nice little winding road of trees with a little brook next to it, and I live across the street from a lake. And
that's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's heaven, and I could afford it, which is unlike Seattle. I can't afford Seattle.
Yes, because you live outside the city, right?
Yeah, it's cheaper, much cheaper out here than it is in the city.
Yeah. Like, I get what you're saying, because I was raised in cities, but I actually like the field and being outside much more. I don't like the kerfuffle of the city.
Yeah. Are you in Edinburgh, or where are you at now?
At the moment, I'm in Edinburgh. Yeah.
So you're in city limits, like
within? Yeah. I'm actually in the middle of the city at the moment. So the opposite of what I'm saying right now.
Yeah. You like it there?
I love it. It's actually really cool. Edinburgh is like super chill, very safe as a city.
Good.
And very green. People are incredibly polite and like friendly. You can always see people, like, especially when you have a little one, people always see people like looking at you, like smiling at you, starting conversations, especially if you go to the park playing with the kids. You will always come out, like, at the end of the day, like talking with another parent or just exchanging numbers so you can have, like, go to the birthday party or something like that, like, how that goes. But yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice. And but they have, like, because Britain, the UK in general, they respect your boundaries. So it's not like they are all up on your face, like they want to talk to you. It's very much like, if you're actually like a approachable person, and they are as well, then you actually get talking. And when it comes to, like, developing a friendship, then if it happens, it happens. So it's very different than Sweden, because I just came over here from DICE in Stockholm. And yeah, Sweden was the opposite of that. Even though Sweden is like Stockholm, it's a lovely city, amazing people, but the Swedes overall, they really respect each other's boundaries, to the point of, like, they will never ask you to kind of go in and have a drink. People from the company, they do, but it's not like you can meet people outside, because they want to basically have their own space. And for us, it was difficult to make friends over 3 years, 3 years and a half that we were there. It was very difficult to make friends, like long-lasting friendships. It was very difficult to make it. So it took a toll after a while. So that's why we started looking at maybe moving away, maybe coming back to the UK, going to the US maybe. So when we actually came over to Edinburgh, thankfully it was before the quarantine, and I went and saw the studio. It's a cool studio, by the way.
Yeah, I saw pictures online. It looks like the arches.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's so cool. It's like new and old, because it was a factory before, and
that's awesome.
They have to keep the beams that way. Like they have to preserve the beams. Like, whenever they got the building, they're like, you have to preserve the beams as they are. It's really cool. And then when we got to meet the people, and we came over here and saw how much green there is, and Jasmine can play outside with no fears of nothing happening to her. It's very, very safe. For us, it feels like home at the moment. So it feels really good.
See, that you're describing a city that I'd want to live in. Like, that would be acceptable city living for me. Like, coming from right outside of New York City, I grew up in the suburbs, so I got this unhealthy perspective of, like, how safe cities are with families. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean, because coming from London, that's exactly how it was. Like, if you actually were to leave your kid playing in a park right in front of the house, you will be seen as like an irresponsible parent.
Yeah.
Because no one actually does that. And if you do that, like, you have a high possibility of your kid either being snatched or something happening, or even if it doesn't, they'll normally grow up to just being up to no good. Basically, they actually hang out with their own crew. So having kids in London is incredibly scary, you know.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you are in a good place, and I was always interested in visiting Edinburgh. Like
Oh yeah,
like
come
that's
over.
high on my list.
Yeah, come over. Come over. We have space here in the home. Just come over.
Oh, that's generous of you.
Exactly. So yeah, it's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So David Stanford, he's a Swede, and he confirmed what I just mentioned about Sweden. Yeah, thanks, David. Appreciate that.
Yeah, one of my friends was actually working over there for a few years. He was
Nice.
at Monolith over in Sweden, and he recently came back. He lives in Florida now, but he spoke highly of the place. But he's single, you know, didn't have any family.
Yeah, exactly. If you're single, I think you probably enjoy more. I mean, the whole country is made for families. That's why it was so good for us. It's made for both people in the couple to actually work as well. Both you and your wife can work, and it's incredibly well organized for that. So we really enjoy that in the beginning. Like, for example, when it comes to deliveries, no one comes to deliver things in your house. They go and deliver it in the post office, the closest post office, which in the beginning we thought that's a bit of a pain, because we used to kind of order things from Amazon and then just someone rings your bell and then you get it.
But it's safe in the post office.
But it's safe in the post office, and it means that you don't have to be home to receive the parcel.
Yeah.
And then you can just go and pick it up. Or, for example, whenever you have a janitor or someone to come in and just fix your place, the locks actually, very, very clever. They actually have this open and close mode, like every lock, but then they have this extra, like, security open mode. And sometimes the janitor or whoever needs to go in, they can actually get a key specific that actually is a master key. They go in, and as long as the door is not really closed fully, it's like semi-closed, they can add the key and open the door, go in, fix the stuff, leave, close the door. So very, very safe, very, very clever, and it's just no one needs to be at home to actually deal with the stuff. It takes a while for you to understand that, especially me coming from London, because I was like super suspicious. I'm like, no one else is going to come into my house. but yeah, genuinely, that's the way it works, and it's fine. It's fine. It's really, really cool.
And you have daycare options too. Like, we don't have daycare options.
So many. Yeah.
And they're reasonable too. Like, if my wife, because my wife's a stay-at-home mom, because 2 kids here, and she if she were to get a job, we'd be losing money every month because of the cost of daycare.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how it is here as well. Yeah. No, in Sweden, they actually, as soon as your kid turns 1.5, I believe, you can put them in daycare, in like little school, preschool. So then they take care of your kid. And I never been anywhere that you feel so supported with family. If it feels almost like you take 50% of the kid and the government takes care of the other 50% of the kid throughout the whole life, throughout the longevity of your kid. They will actually take care of everything for you: daycare, school, university. You don't have to pay for anything. They actually pay you some money every month in order for you to actually pay expenses or anything else. And yeah, it just feels super easy.
Yeah, it's a little different than Seattle.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Man.
Nice. Here's a good question. As an animator, I'd like to add in the beginning of this, how does life change before a family and after family?
Well, I mean, just less time to animate. That's about it, really. Like, I have to be more judicious with my employment choices, because, you know, I've got more than just me on the line. And since my wife is a stay-at-home mom, it's, you know, it's a lot of people that I have to make sure stay safe. So not only do I have to make sure I make judicious employment decisions, I also have to make sure I try and do my best to stay ahead of the game with animation. So the way I've discovered to accomplish this is to stay in the trenches, for them and for me, because if I'm growing as an animator, I'm more and more appealing, and if I grow as a manager, I'm well, there's a lot of managers out there, so it kind of ensures employment by making that call. So it's like, I don't know, like the animation itself really hasn't changed much, though. It's really just the career that has changed.
Yeah.
Like how are you thinking about that kind of a thing?
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way, because like Camille right now, she was working before, but she's also like a stay-at-home mom, and she will be most likely for most of next year, if not more.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the situation with COVID. But yeah, like I think life doesn't change very much. The love for animation becomes, I think the love for animation becomes bigger in my case, I feel, because every time my daughter comes to my computer and she sees something, like the other day I was working on something through my work, and she came over and it made her super happy. She was asking me about it and how does it work. And all of a sudden you start seeing animation from their eyes instead of just your eyes. And then you see the magic again, right? That stuff is very special. And yeah, animation becomes much more of like a job, in terms of like, you need to actually, as you mentioned, you need to actually make money for the family, and can you actually be ahead of the game constantly and not be like outdated or old or whatever it is. So it's something that is always in my mind.
Yeah, I like what you said about seeing animation through your kid's eyes. That's actually brilliant. Like that's a good way of putting it into words, because that's one of the main reasons I chose to do Moss, was because I didn't want my kids, like my son grew up seeing me bludgeon bums and Condemned, right? So
gotta see.
like, there's a big difference. Like animating a cute mouse, they can come in here, thankfully because of COVID, they always do. But when they come in here, they see me animating a cute mouse doing something cute, and that's great.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Yeah. Thankfully, it's good. It's really good. Here's a question. Since we're talking about being an introvert, I'm also an introvert. What advice would you give me to get the best out of the animation industry? Aren't we all introverts?
Yes.
As an animator.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it? I've met many animators that are extroverts, but like I think we're at an advantage as introverts, because it means we're at our desk more, focusing on a performance, and we're more in our own heads.
Yes.
Distracted less often, but
sure. Yeah. I gotta feel the same way. Like, because I am definitely the kind of guy that actually likes to stay home. Funny enough, I never thought I hit the limit of how much I would like to stay home until this COVID hit.
Oh, you hit your limit, huh?
Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm like, I want to see people. Before it was like, I just cannot have enough. I just want to be by myself. But yeah, now I'm like, yeah, I miss people.
Well, that's what's great about what you're doing, because this is awesome. Like, I am loving this chat.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah. And the fact that we actually have this, it means that it feels almost like we are close to each other, even though we're not, right? Even though we have an ocean between us.
Yeah, and 8 time zones.
Yeah, it's really cool. Do you have any other questions? Yeah, Chromosome is actually answering most of the stuff, which is good.
Yeah. Well, should we just do one more in there, and then
sure.
Day back?
Let's do it. Do you want to pick a question, maybe? If you find anything that tickles your fancy?
I'm scrolling up, see if I can find an old one.
Yeah.
Well, all right, here. Let me ask a question of you, if you don't mind.
Sure. Oh, this is interesting.
All right. So when you are deciding on a character, like, what are the most important things that you do to establishing who your character is?
Cool. That's a good question. Very deep. I like it a lot. So I normally ask, what does the player need to feel to actually have the most out of this character. That's the first thing. Like, I always start from the standpoint of the player, right? In terms of like, this character is meant to do what to the player, right?
Yeah.
And then I actually kind of will go down the rabbit hole from there. I normally ask questions like female, male, that actually normally decides exactly which way to split, or animal in the case of Quill, for example. And then after that, positive, negative, go down that rabbit hole and continuously go that way. There's something that I do at the end whenever we have the character that I actually, it doesn't matter if he's on paper, in the paper stage, or when he's in gameplay or he's blocking out. I always try to sell that to someone and see how they feel about it. There's something to exactly the same thing as I do with YouTube.
Mhm.
Almost like a story. So I get a premise of getting a character. Cool. Okay, no problem. Then I go to my boss, director of the game, and then I actually go like, we have this character, and this is why the character is amazing. The character has these traits, goes down these things, and is amazing for these reasons. And the player should feel this way when they play this character for this and this other reason. And then I just wait. And I just kind of wait for the reception. And normally you have a sense of how people are feeling about the character based on the description that you give to them.
Yeah.
If the first reaction is like, eh, normally that's the first genuine reaction that things are not quite working. And then you can actually kind of evolve from that and be like, so what do you think is not working here? What didn't actually appeal to you?
Yeah.
If the reaction throughout the whole pitch is like, I like this. This is good. This is good. Then it means that you're actually on the right path. And then you can ask questions such as, how did the character make you feel about? Is this more or less what we're looking for? More of this, less of that. Is it too kind? Is it too strong? Is it too emphatic? Is it too, and then we can just fine tune things until we'll find that perfect balance on the character. And then we can start working on the prototype after all that.
That's a lot of upfront work right there.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, you probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, just like everything that we do in animation, that spending time doing your research, doing your sketches, doing your studying actually saves time later on whenever you actually doing the work. So I'm actually applying the same methods that we apply as an animator. That instead of just quickly jumping in and just creating a character and just kind of like starting moving the character and finding out, I'm actually spending a lot of time actually on like thinking about stuff before we do all that. Because if my team is excited about it, if my boss is excited about it, even before we start work, that means that we just have to deliver when it comes to actually starting the work.
Yeah, it's like, I like how you're validating assumptions early,
Yeah.
and then now you have a plan. Like, do you notice, like, follow-up question, like, as you go, are you still validating assumptions? Are you still answering new questions, or are you?
All the time. Like, I try to actually get, anytime that I actually kind of, I'm doing something and that initial validation is out the way, you continue building, you continue finding answers for certain things, but then there's always a point that you hit a snag that you think is this way or that way, and you're not sure. And then you try to decide on a way. Every time there's a split on that way, I normally try to go to either my team or someone that I trust, or someone, normally not directly to the boss. I don't want to waste their time until I have something solid, but someone that I can actually be like, do you think this fits within the character now? Do you think the character would do something like this? And if the reaction is either no or more or less, or I'm not too sure, then we can go to someone else and do the same thing. Sometimes I take the advice in, sometimes I don't, just like animation. Sometimes you actually have a feeling that maybe this is the right way, even though everyone tells you it's not the right way, just a feeling that you have inside. But overall, that's kind of how I go. As soon as I hit a snag, I try to kind of like validate it as fast as I can.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's you can see that in the way you specifically handled Doku.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like when I did General Doku, it was exactly like that. Like it was basically me asking questions all the time to the team about like, like, for example, at some point I actually made him, as soon as he slides left or right, he actually puts his arm behind his back and he slides, right? And to me, I was like, I'm going to push it here. I feel like because he sometimes fights this way, there's nowhere in the game that while Dooku is actually fighting, that he's actually doing this typical Dooku thing that he actually does. So I'm going to add it to the slide. Maybe it's going to be too much. Maybe it's going to be too little, but we'll find out. So that it was the point that I was prototyping. So I did the animation for it. And at DICE, we had these days that we had like these big animation meetings, this cinema room that we have on the top. And I didn't really show it to anyone. I actually showed it to the whole team. and I went like, this is Dooku, this is his status. Like you guys didn't have an update for a couple of weeks now. Here's how he's going to look, or how he's looking now. And I just allowed the room to actually kind of have a reaction to it. And as soon as he started sliding and doing the thing, everyone was like, "Oh, this is cool." So at the point, I was like, you know what? Turns out that is actually just enough, and it's not too much. So
yeah, and it's tough too, because common wisdom says don't put too much character in a single sample, because then it's oversaturation. But I think finding when you can and when you can't, that's the golden nugget, right? Because that's where your character is.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's too little, but finding that nice balance that, because if you think about it, right, like this is the conclusion that we got after working in a few characters. We're talking about it at DICE with some people, and we're like, we are actually creating characters for a game, and we are creating extra animations that haven't been seen in a movie before, and people still need to believe that these characters will do this in a movie or in a world that they haven't seen. For example, the droidicas never jump in the movies, ever. And at some point, we had to make the droidicas jump. So how does the droidica jump?
Yeah.
Right? So like I actually had to prototype that. And even for me, I was like, these guys roll a lot, but they don't have any mechanism to make them jump. So the only thing I found was like them, because they have the legs like wrapped around their bodies, right? So the only thing I found is that as they are rolling, they can slap one leg on the floor, and as soon as they slap the leg on the floor, they go. So then once again, I showed it to the team, and I'm like, validation, right? Like, how does this look to you guys? Does this look like droidicas would actually do something like this? Do they look good enough? Do they look heavy enough? And I want to put it in game and stuff. Like people just thought that that's how they jumped, and people were like, "This is great," and yeah, it was so.
You validated player expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. How do you go about designing a character? I'm curious now.
Well, very similar. In a way, like, well, take Quill for example. She when we first made her model, we didn't know who she was, but we knew what we wanted the player to feel. So we really liked the idea of playing with human scale versus mouse scale, because we knew it would be a tabletop. We didn't want to have camera motion to make people sick. We wanted it to be a comfortable experience. So we understood some context in which the game would take place. So then we needed a character to fit that context and fit the emotional thing that we wanted the player to experience, right? We wanted the player to understand, this character's cute. We wanted the player to feel protective of this character. We wanted the player to have X experience, right? So, okay, well, a mouse would fit a lot of these needs, and having a female mouse, I think, spoke to us more emotionally for the context. So we made her female, but we didn't want to over-index on that. We just wanted it to be just something about her. And then once we had a model that we figured we liked, like that just felt right to us emotionally, I actually just stared at it and just let her tell me what she wanted to say. And it sounds like you should commit me to a mental institution right now, but like my characters literally talk to me. They like, I'll look at them and then I'll hear their voice of what they're saying and what they're interested in and what they're doing. And as I'm animating the character, they're telling me if they think it feels right to them. And they're like, it's the weirdest thing, right?
But no, right? It's really good. I get it though. I get it. yeah, I get it.
So like I had this one animation where she was, she was aware of your presence, right? So to show that she was aware of your presence, she started sniffing like a mouse would sniff.
Okay.
Because from her perspective, her awareness comes from being able to smell you. And the cool thing about that is it tells the player that you have a smell. And it's not ham-fisted telling the player that. All of a sudden, the player knows that subconsciously, right? So they're, oh, I'm in this world because it can smell me, right? But then she told me something really important about that, which was, I'm more human than you think I am. So, yeah. So then it's like, okay, well, how do you smell like a mouse? Because her anatomy is more mouse than it is human.
Yeah.
But I want, like, she and me wanted her personality to be more relatable, more human.
Yeah.
To get that deeper bond, because you can't. It's hard to relate to a mouse. And trying to figure out, like, okay, let's reapproach this sniff animation. What about it is too mouse-like? How do we make her more comfortable, make us more comfortable with her? And then I just keep doing animations to evolve. And it was more of like, I do animations for production, knowing that they may never get used.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this way, if it's a clip that works, great. We've knocked something off the schedule. If it's a clip that doesn't work, well, that met my expectations. I didn't expect it to work.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
And then, like, slowly but surely, she started defining herself based on the context of the world and the emotions we wanted the players to experience. So, like, I discovered, she told me something really important one day. She said, I'm really small. I have to work really hard just to move around this massive space. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to scramble up the ledge instead of just pop up the ledge the way Mario would,
Yeah.
And we're going to slow down the gameplay, because if we slow down the gameplay, it's going to give you time to tell us that story about yourself.
That is great.
Yeah, it's everything you do is going to be 110%, as opposed to us humans. We'd literally just reach in and grab this brick,
Yeah, of course.
And over time, she self-directed, if that makes sense. And I was pull it out of her,
Yeah. You know her well.
she knows herself well. I just went with it. Like,
no, but it's really interesting to see that, to hear that, because I get it. I know exactly. Like, you don't sound crazy at all. Like, you sound like it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense because I think ultimately that's exactly what characters do to you, and you actually kind of build a bond with a character, because the more you actually animate it, the more you get to know them, and the more you get to know them, the more you actually kind of know how to answer certain questions about how the character should move and do certain things and the style of the character. So yeah, I think that relationship is definitely there.
And the more the player will feel it too. Like, there was we had this playtest, going to your assumption validation comments that you were making.
Yeah.
We had this playtest where we had somebody's spouse come in, playtest Moss. It was halfway through development. And the CEO, Tam, and I were just standing in the doorway watching this player play. And back then, Quill would just kind of do gestures, essentially gestures that you'd see on any character ever, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing about those motions that told you who Quill was. It was just, I'm communicating a gameplay need, which is not how you define a character. It's how you define a system, So I turned to Tam, like, she needs to really communicate with the player. And, we played with the idea of, like, maybe doing a voice work. We don't want a mouse to talk in English, because that just feels disingenuous. So I turned to him like, well, why can't you use sign language? Like, wouldn't that be a good way for her to communicate? Like, that implies that, she learned it somewhere. So now she has this history, and like, she's speaking to a group of people that are underrepresented in games, and she's like, it feels emotional when you actually see a character speak to you in sign language. Like, it hits something in your brain that just feels genuine.
Yeah. You feel empathy. You feel
and it's like, all of a sudden, she's not just doing generic things that would fit on any character. Because, like, how you make a character is not to make motions that fit on any possible character. It's make motions that only fit on that character, right?
That's it, exactly.
And, like, that felt like who she was. And then all of a sudden, the moment she spoke, like, I did an animation. The very next day, I just went in, spent that Wednesday doing animation, doing a prototype sign language clip, and I tweeted it out because I don't know sign language.
That looks amazing.
And I'm like, because I did YouTube research, right?
Yeah.
and I wanted to see if I was screwing it up. Like I knew a few people, like at the time I had like 200 followers on Twitter, and I'm like, hey guys, am I getting this right? You know, and then it blew up because I think Quill not only like when I first saw it, I'm like, yeah, that's Quill, that's who she is, but like that connected with people emotionally too, like on Twitter, and then all of a sudden that 30,000 tweets or whatever retweets, whatever it ended up being.
Super big. Yeah, with reason. It's so cool. Yeah,
that was validating the assumption.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating to actually like hear the stories behind the scenes. It's crazy because I think people here, they actually most likely just like we both been around for a while, but like that fascination about what goes on behind the scenes in a game, especially after release, it's always really fascinating to hear the stories and know exactly what went down and how things got made. Because when the game is out, and you play it and you don't really think about those things. But it's almost like the DVDs behind the scenes. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you work similarly, because I think what that says to me is, well, okay, you're doing the right thing, you know, because it's I can see it in your work too. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, that seems to be like there's a system in place then, you know, that people can follow.
For sure. That's how I feel. I mean, like, I guess there's different ways of going about it, but I think if you actually are really serious about your job, I think getting inside the head of the character and trying to find gameplay solutions, it's the best way to go about it. And I think at the end of the day, no matter the medium, that's what you want to do, right? You want to tell a story, you want to have a strong character, and like gameplay is just the interactive, right? But besides that, like you still want the player to feel like the companionship, especially with a character like Quill, right? Because they follow her journey, and after a while, like you need to connect with a character. If you have an empty character that just walks the same way and does the same things all the time and there's no personality, then I don't think you feel as attached to the game overall.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, because I think like people's memories, like if you could imagine like, you know, like your key moments in your life, they didn't come from anything other than the strong emotion you were feeling in that moment.
That's it, yeah.
Completely. And then you bind the things that were happening, like the song you were listening to, or the person you were with, or you bind these moments because that emotion made it all salient. Like it's all right there.
Yeah.
So
perfect moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think game development has this rare opportunity because you've got people interacting with this game. You've got people reaching into the world or pressing buttons, whatever. They're essentially committing an opinion, right?
Yeah.
So like, you have this great opportunity that film will never have because it's not interactive, where you can, if you tie like strong emotion to that moment of interactivity or to that point, and now all of a sudden it's the events that they were doing, and it's the character that they were with, and the music that they were listening to, and it becomes kind of like this tentpole emotion in their life. They will never forget your game because
they will never forget the game. Yeah, exactly. And what you mentioned there is exactly what I keep saying to people when it comes to describing gameplay animation and how special it is.
Yeah,
because that's exactly what you get as a gameplay animator. Is like when you actually play a game, like just to detach ourselves from any project, God of War. Like when you actually go through a moment with your kid, and it's not the cutscenes themselves, it's the fact that you actually went through a whole bunch of stuff with that character and your kid, and you actually had to fight through things, and you did those things. You actually pressed the buttons to do those things. When you get that cutscene that then really finally hits you really hard because, I don't know, something happened to your son, it hits you twice as hard as a movie would, because you're not passive. You actually have played the journey because you were the one pushing the character forward. You were the one jumping the ledge. You were the one fighting the boss. And that stuff is special. I think is missed in a lot of times, and I think it's going to become more and more important as games actually gain more popularity out there.
Yeah, and we have this great opportunity to do all this stuff. Like the first time I saw Moblin in Ocarina of Time, like, and how big it was, like I'll never forget that. Like moment 37 at Evo. I wasn't there, but holy crap! Like that's story in video games right there. You know?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, a game making you cry, like Zelda. Zelda, like is one of those games that actually kind of, you get to the end, and after spending 60 hours plus on a game, you get to the end and you just you feel emotional, you feel like crying, and you feel like you don't want the story to end because you love that world. You feel connected to the world.
Yeah.
It's almost like a second life. It's really powerful. It's incredibly powerful.
Which is why I'm so excited to hear what you're doing.
Hopefully, we'll give you the same feelings. Should we go for one last question, you think?
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
We have a good
So,
one?
yeah, we actually have a good one. Yes, this one, because we're both talking about gameplay and we're both like gamers at heart. I'll let you go first. Do you still enjoy and play games as much? And what is your favorite game ever?
Oh, yes, I still play the hell out of games. It's more difficult for me to play games if it doesn't have good animation. I tend to have a tough time playing it.
I love it so much. Yeah. Even if the game is awesome, if it doesn't have good animation,
Yeah,
I can't. It's yeah.
yeah. I just figured it was like a bit of gaming snobbery on my part. Like coming from New Jersey, I have a tough time eating pizza in Washington. But it's
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I just went through Ghost of Tsushima, which I thought was great. God of War was a standout for me a couple years ago when that came out. God, I love that game.
Me too, man.
The Final Fantasy VII remake. Oh, I'm a huge Final Fantasy VII fan. That game came out when I was in college and just defined me back then. So doing the remake was, God, it was so good.
I still haven't played the remake. I need to play it. I need to get it.
It's an acquired taste, but I think it's really well done. They have very odd acting choices, like the characters constantly while they're acting, and it's very strange. But if you understand the director and like his style, it kind of makes more sense.
Okay.
But yeah, hopefully you can look past that and enjoy it for what it is, because it's an outstanding game.
Yeah. I never played the original as well. I played a little bit of the original in the beginning, but I at that point in time I didn't have a PS. No, was it PS1?
Yeah, PS1.
PS1, right? Yeah, I didn't have a PS1. As in, like, I used to actually use my friend's PS1 to play games, but at that point I moved away, so I didn't have a PS1 at hand. So I completely skipped the whole Final Fantasy VII. I do remember perfectly how much of an impact he had, because at the time that there was no such thing as viral things, that game went viral. Everyone was talking about that. Yeah.
It was a watershed moment because I was a college student, and seeing 3D in a video game, in a game that generated emotion and really made you care, like, wow, I want to do that for a living. So
That's it.
Yeah, it was pivotal.
Yeah, cool. So I really do. I still play games. I'm actually still playing through Ghost of Tsushima right now. I'm loving that game. Really amazing game to kind of close down a generation of a console. I think.
Yeah,
I think
perfect frame for that. Yeah,
perfect. Just like God of War was great at, I think it was PS2 or PS3. I think it was when God of War came out. Like the God of War 3. I thought that was epic. I think Ghost of Tsushima is the same right now for this generation. It's beautiful. And yeah, I played God of War. And I normally try to play most of the big games that come out every year, at least. And I don't really finish them. I finished the ones that I really love. So Ghost of Tsushima, I'm going to finish. God of War, definitely. So if I'm really involved in the story and I really want to see how it ends and I'm connected with the character, and I feel like a game is doing all the things that I would like to do in a game, like God of War, like they're pushing all the like bells and whistles, and they talking to the inner gamer, the child in me. I'm like, yeah, I need to play this game to the end. Everything else in terms of games, like there's games that I really enjoy certain things. For example, Control. I played Control quite a bit, and I think Control did a really good job of actually kind of doing game mechanics really well, originality really well, but animation was not one of the fortes of the game. Unfortunately, I kind of felt like there was a lot of things there that I could not play through because I kept thinking about the things that were missing on transitions, on walk levels and variations, stuff like that. And I was just like, but it would only take another 15%, and then that's it. But yeah, so that was Control. So yeah, but I still play a lot of games nowadays, and I try to play most of them as I can. So I try to get all the consoles. I just pre-ordered. I was lucky, one of the lucky ones to pre-order PS4, PS5. I managed to make it just in the nick of time. I got my email confirmation, so hopefully it won't get canceled. So yeah.
Congratulations! I'm wicked jealous.
Thanks. Thanks. I told my team the other day, and they felt the same way. It was actually really lucky, because what happened was that I wanted to see the PS5 announcement thing when they did the one they did a few days ago, and I couldn't because I was watching a movie with my fiance and we're doing other things. So I catch the end of it. So I just saw PS5 is going to be available in November at this price. So at the end of the night, I actually went to the websites to see if the pre-orders were available. And in that window that I went online to see if the pre-orders were available, they were available. So I just went, I know the craziness. So I'm just going to pre-order mine now, get out of the way. And as you know, PS5, Sony actually announced that it was going to be the next day, the following day, right?
Yeah, but it was a little early, yeah.
But it was like the day before at night. So yeah, I just got lucky. So next morning at work, everyone was saying, like, everyone was furious and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully I'll get mine. Let's see.
You're the first person I've heard of that's actually gotten it, because we had the same conversation at work the next morning where everyone was just furious. They're like, it was just a big bitch fest over Zoom about not being able to get it.
And we all become children when it comes to that. I can't believe it.
You know, it comes from like understanding that the games that are coming out for it are going to be amazing, that Sony's got this incredible track record, and that we're all just excited gamers doing what we love. So like, it makes sense we'd be upset about something like this, right?
For sure. No matter how old you are, like whenever a new generation comes along, it's always candy. Christmas. But yeah, my favorite game ever. It's difficult to have one. I don't know if you feel the same, Rich, but it's difficult to have one. There's a few. I can name a few that are my favorite games ever for different reasons. Like Portal is one of my favorite games ever, but it's because of the mechanics, the creativity, the puzzle, the innovation, how they managed to kind of add so much personality to the robots, so many different things. I think Uncharted, when I first played the first one, where it was not a big deal, because I love Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is my favorite movie trilogy ever, and that's it. Uncharted felt right into my niche at that point when it first came out. I don't know if you remember, but it was not a big deal. There was other games that came out that year that were bigger than Uncharted when it first came out. But I played it, and I remember thinking, this is special. This is really cool, and it's amazingly well done. So that memory stayed with me very strongly, and it became super good. And actually, I know it's kind of early to say it, but I think God of War, the one that came out last, is definitely one of my favorite ones, because I played the original trilogy of God of War games, so I knew the story and all that stuff. But I genuinely feel there's no other game that came since, like before God of War or since God of War, that has managed to convey so much emotion, raw emotion, into the player, into the gameplay, into the characters. Having a kid augmented everything that he felt.
And it wasn't overacted. They did a really good job of nailing the acting.
Yeah, exactly. And it just made you feel like $1 million. And the game mechanics were superb, and the originality of that axe throw and how they actually made it all kind of unfold together into like a logical way of doing it. It was not just gratified axe throwing. There was actually a reason why you had to do it. The game is incredibly well done.
Yeah, it's probably one of, like, whenever I talk about game development and need to cite examples of the best, God of War is usually the top game that I cite. Like, it's just exquisite. And I think Naughty Dog is right there with them. Like, I thought Uncharted was groundbreaking for its time. And I actually bought the PS3 just to get that game, because the
game,
Naughty Dog is the talented studio. I knew that before Uncharted came out, and I was looking forward to it for that reason. And then when Uncharted 2 came out, I'm just like, you guys, this is ridiculous. Like, what? what you guys are capable of doing is just absolutely insane. Like some of the set pieces and the God.
Yeah, the talent and how they keep improving on animation and systems, and every year, every game that they actually go past is just incredible.
Yeah, it's just mad respect. I know that the studio tends to put in a bit of overtime. There's been a bunch of backlash on that, but damn, the talent that's there and what they're capable of doing is just insane.
It's insane, yeah, for sure. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, that God of War team. If I could work with them someday, that would be.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. In all honesty, that game was the thing that actually made me change my mind. And the director of the game, Corey Barlog.
Barlog, yeah.
Immense respect for him, and the fact that he was an animator. He started as an animator.
Yeah, I remember that.
Director, and then he actually it kind of gives hope to me that guys like us, maybe one day, if we get a chance to direct a game, we'll do a good job. Maybe if he did it, maybe we can do it.
Maybe we could, yeah. That would be hard though, because I still want to animate. Like even if like I've got the situation now where I'm working on a game and I can't talk about it, but I can say that I'm co-directing it.
That's great. That's really cool.
So we're kind of splitting the director responsibilities among a few different people. So it's this nice thing where I get to actually experiment with directing a project.
Cool.
In a way that's not overwhelming and I can't make content still. So I get to do both.
You can get to animate still and create and have a hand on that.
Yeah, I get to dip my feet into a bunch of different ponds, and it feels really good.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I haven't gotten there yet. But now that I'm in this position, I have a feeling that if given the chance in the future, for some reason, I would love to be in that position of actually kind of like actually directing not only just animation, but having maybe a saying. Because as you know, when you've been a developer for long enough, you start to actually have a feeling about what good art is and a good code team is, and animation tech and pipelines and workflows. So I think being in that position must be, it can only come with experience. It can only come with like having made a few games before and knowing what's good and what's bad, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, congratulations. I'm really stoked to see what you actually have up your sleeve now then. Yeah, it's gonna be nice.
Hopefully we get to talk about it soon. But yeah, it's I'm very proud.
Awesome. Cool. So we've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes. That was pretty cool. I hope the chat liked everything they heard, and I hope you guys enjoyed Richard Lico joining us here in the channel. Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure. I had a blast.
Thank you so much, Harvey, for having me here, man. It's awesome. Really good getting to know you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. I think he's overdue. We talking on Twitter from time to time, but never like this, right?
If I'm gonna try and get out to Europe for a vacation or something here once COVID dies down, and it'd be great to hook up, crap beer or something.
For sure, that will be amazing. And if you actually want to come by here to Scotland, please do. Please let me know. And you're most welcome, man. And it'll be awesome to actually kind of catch a beer, talk some more, and just like finally get to know each other. Because it was overdue for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone to actually they came to the chat. Lots of questions. This is awesome. Always awesome to see. And hopefully we get to do this like in the future again, Rich.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming and taking part in this.
Awesome. No problem, man. Have a great rest of the day.
All right, take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.